My 1973 Super Beetle back here, which sat in storage for 20 years, is so close to being drivable. But because of everything going on in the world, which I know I don't need to tell you about, I have had very little time to work on this, and I've had almost no time to make videos, which is why you have not heard from me in a while. But today I'm gonna show you all the things I've done to the Beetle, because I still have done quite a few things, and I'll show you how I completely failed at making a homemade brake pressure bleeder. After this car sat for 20 years, the brakes were just completely shot. The wheel cylinders were locked up from rust. So on the front and rear brakes, I pretty much did just a complete overhaul. We have new wheel cylinders in the front. On the back, I rebuilt the wheel cylinders because I got a really good deal on some rebuild kits. The shoes were actually in good shape and had been replaced not too long before it went into storage, so I kept those. And on the front and rear, I have all new brake hoses. I also replaced the master cylinder because it was leaking badly and just totally worn out. I've mostly been using IAP brand parts. For example, this front brake hose is IAP, and I've been mostly satisfied with the fit and finish so far. IAP is a company that specializes in VW parts. A lot of them are really reasonably priced on Rock Auto. You won't be surprised to know that a lot of them are made in China, but like I said, I've been pretty happy with the fit and finish. This brake hose is IAP, the front wheel cylinders here I got were IAP. Everything went in fine. You can see the box here for the front wheel cylinders made in China, but they do have some more expensive options for parts if you're willing to pay for it. For example, on the master cylinder, I didn't want to just go with the cheapest option, so I paid a little extra and got an LPR branded master cylinder made in Italy, which was then just wholesaled to IAP and then sold through their brand. This fit well and worked well. So far, everything I've got from them has looked pretty good. I did notice on the rear brake hoses, I decided to go with another brand that I like, Beck Arnley, and the rear ones were made in Italy and clearly a little bit nicer finished. I did have to also replace one wheel bearing. I don't know if it'll show up on here, but the rollers have a lot of pitting on this, only this one for some reason. And IAP actually offered some nice stuff if you were willing to pay a few extra bucks. So I got a name brand bearing here through IAP. Here I am under the car. This is the master cylinder. You can see I don't have the brake light switches hooked up yet, but the LPR master cylinder went in fine. I bench bled it first. The brakes eventually bled fine. The master cylinder looks good and fit well. But man, because of where the master cylinders are located under the car here, installing them is a complete pain. Like you'd expect, on the engine here, I had to do quite a bit after it was sitting for 20 years. I did all the normal stuff you'd expect. I replaced some of the fuel lines, replaced the oil, got a new fuel filter and moved it out of the engine bay, and rebuilt the carburetor. That was an IAP kit, again, purchased because it was affordable and it worked pretty well. You can see an old electric fuel pump up here, which I decided to disconnect for now. This is not very good placement here in the engine bay like this, and I decided to just go back to a mechanical fuel pump, at least for now. This is another one where I got IAP, but not the cheapest one they offered, if memory serves. They sold a Brosol made in Brazil, you know, a decent supplier, so I got that one. And I think that's about all I did here. After doing that, I did get it running like I showed in my last video. It still needs some tuning. I have to tune the carburetor. I'll have to set the timing. Years ago, I sold my timing light because I hadn't needed one in so long. Now I need one again. I'll have to get a new one, but it runs pretty well, so it doesn't appear I'm going to have to do much more other than probably tune the carburetor to at least take it on some test drives. Maybe I should say that this video is not sponsored by IAP or anything. It's just a brand of parts I decided to try, and so far they've worked okay and they were affordable. Here on the interior, I have not done very much because I haven't needed to. There's a couple things I have done. Let me move the seat forward here. New battery, that obviously makes sense after 20 years of sitting. The only other thing I've done so far is replace the seatbelt. The driver's side seatbelt was just totally destroyed. It wasn't working anymore. And these Beetles, even a 73 here, has a 3-point seatbelt. I was able to get one, just a kind of a generic replacement on eBay that fits a lot of different vehicles, and it fit this quite well. Now let's talk about this, my complete failure when it comes to building my own homemade one-man brake pressure bleeder. So this is basically a home-brewed copy of a Motive brand pressure bleeder. I'm sure you've seen them. There are actually quite a few videos on making these. So you take a garden sprayer, that's what I have here. You can put a gauge on it to monitor the tank pressure. That's kind of optional, but it was cheap, so I put one on there. And then you make a cap to screw onto your master cylinder. You can pressurize the master cylinder by pumping this up. Then to bleed the brakes, it only takes one person. You open the bleeder, and since the master cylinder is pressurized, it just pushes out the fluid. So my problem here was making the cap. One thing that is kind of nice about air-cooled VWs is the cap is just kind of a generic thread, so a lot of caps off of soda bottles or other things will screw onto it just fine. That's what this is. And I have a little, brass barb fitting here to connect the hose to. But what I was having a problem with is getting this cap to seal on the master cylinder. It wouldn't seal, so it was just leaking brake fluid everywhere under there. Normally I would be able to fix this, but right now I don't want to go anywhere to buy parts because I'm just staying home all the time because of the illness. And I can't really order replacement parts on Amazon because they're prioritizing, understandably, orders for critical supplies. So things like little adapters I would need here are not shipping for a month. So I might be able to salvage this, but what I ended up doing is just bleeding the brakes the old-fashioned way, getting my long-suffering wife to sit in the car and pump the pedal while I open the bleeders. But I really wish I just would have spent the money to get the real Motive branded bleeder and the correct adapter for this car. If memory serves on Amazon, it's only like 75 bucks. So that's about it. That's where I am on the Beetle. There are a few more things I need to do before I can drive it. Adjust the front bearings, get all that buttoned back up and put back together. I'm going to replace the transmission oil. There are a couple other little things, but that's about it. You may have noticed I have not been making videos about all of this because I'm not sure if everyone wants to see every little thing on this car. And as I said before, I don't have much time to make videos these days. So let me know, what would you like to see on this car? Should I be making videos about every little thing I do? Let me know in the comments down below, and thanks for sticking with the channel.